Hello and welcome. This is Lora O'Brien, one of the co-founders of the Irish Pagan School YouTube channel. And we're answering the question today of how do you start a Celtic or Irish pagan practice? And I think the question was, how do you start a pagan practice? How do you start actually doing things, especially when you don't have community? This came in from Kayla on our mailing list. So we're going to be answering that today. And we had sent out the request for questions so that we could start to make content that actually matters to our community, because obviously that's important to us. And that was through our mailing list. So we do check the YouTube comments as well. So make sure you're commenting any questions or anything below, but also join the mailing list. The link is in the description below, and you will get fantastic resources and you will have the opportunity to ask us questions directly, such as Kayla did. So how do you start an Irish or Celtic pagan practice? Obviously that's the perspective that I have to answer it from, but this does apply generally to paganism across the board, really. But obviously my perspective particularly is going to be Irish pagan. So number one is to understand that you start from wherever you're at. Okay, it is fantastic if you have a solid ethical group that you can join in with, or a community that you can join in with, who just tell you what to do. But that also might not suit everyone as well, and there's always going to be clashes of personality in any group, whether that's online or in real life. There's going to be ethical questions around the leadership and making sure that they are doing everything that they can possibly physically, humanly do to create as safe a space, again, whether online or in real life, as possible. And if you are involved, or you are thinking of getting involved with any groups or leadership in that way, they should be questioning themselves as much as their communities are questioning them. And they should encourage those questions and those sort of questions and feedback and all of that good stuff. And then you should start to see changes happening around that. So as community leaders, myself and John do our best with that, again, as much as is humanly possible. But nobody's perfect. So it's not that you would expect perfection from a group, but if you have a group that you can trust in that way, and you can ask them what to do, then obviously that's a good port of call to start with. But our particular community question was from a person who is not in that situation. So that's where I'm going to be answering it from. So you're on your own. You have resources like the Irish Pagan School and other recommended. We have a list of recommended channels down below as well, that you can definitely follow. And anything that you ever hear recommended from myself or John or one of the teachers at the Irish Pagan School, or the mods or the admins in our groups, is something that we can really stand over. Now, again, not always 100% perfect. We do learn things about recommended resources on occasion and maybe change our recommendations, but as things stand, you can definitely trust the recommendations that you're given in our classes, in our Facebook groups, or here on our YouTube channel. So that is a starting point. For myself personally, with my own practice, daily, I'm going to call it meditation, right? But please don't be scared by that term. There has to be a space in your day, right? And believe me when I say, no matter how busy your life is, no matter how neurodivergent your arse is, no matter how complicated your home situation is, there is a space in every single person's day when they can do a few minutes of quiet reflection. So there is literally no excuse for this. It could be when you are sitting on the toilet. It could be those few minutes when you open your eyes. It could be the few minutes just before you close your eyes. It could be the time, on a work break shift, when you can take a breath of fresh air and go and stand under a tree instead of having a gossip with coworkers. It could be literally whatever time you can carve, and whatever time you think of doing it in. It is best practice for your own sake to do it on a regular basis, to find something that you are already doing every single day You will hear me repeat this advice over and over again. People still don't get it. They still make excuses. They still say, not my day, I can't find time. It's bullshit. You can find time, right? You have something, no matter how off schedule, off program, off routine, chaotic, forgetful, lack of organization set up your day is, right? There is something that you do every single day. And just take a minute just to think about that. There is something that consistently you do without even thinking about it every single day, right? Your first, as I said, your first body call of the morning, when you are sitting on a toilet. That is good enough. If that's all you've got, that is good enough, right? The first time you put on the kettle or the coffee machine for a drink, the first glass of water you pour, anything, whatever it is, right? And your daily meditation can be literally just closing your eyes at that point, taking 3 deep breaths, and giving your mind just a tiny bit of quiet space. And it doesn't sound like a lot, right? But you'll hear people talking about pagan practice, talking about relationship with deities, with spirits, with ancestors, with nature, with anything. None of those things can communicate to you if you don't have quiet space for them to communicate. Okay, they can be consistent and they can be persistent in their communications once your relationship with them builds up, but it has to start somewhere. And they are not loud. They're sometimes very, very obvious, but they're not usually loud. And that means that it's on you to listen and to make sure that you have the opportunity to listen. Now, there is a whole host of other benefits from meditation, from deep breathing, from, and all of those are very helpful and very practical. But that's not actually what we're talking about here when we talk about pagan practice. You have to have space in your day to build those relationships. And there's a lot of focus put on the active participation. What do I do? What rituals do I do? What offerings do I do? What prayers do I say? And all of those are important. And again, we have resources on this channel at the Irish Pagan School. John has a class on making offerings to pagan gods and goddesses. I have a free blog post if you don't want to pay for that class at lorao'brien.ie. How do I make offerings to gods and goddesses? You can absolutely search that shit up and find those very practical resources and instructions. And that is the active part of building relationship. But there's also a passive part, and that is being able to sit, stand, focus, tune in, listen. And that is a skill that most people don't have. Honestly, in our everyday, everything is so busy. Every distraction is coming at you a mile a minute, right? There's notifications going off everywhere. There's buzzings and beeps and background noise and all of those things. And I'm not saying those are all like horrible bad things, but what I'm saying is it doesn't give a lot of time and space for those quiet voices to be able to communicate back to you. And that is an absolutely essential part of pagan practice. And please notice that while that is most often thought of in the sense of deities, gods and goddesses, you don't have to have a particular relationship with any god or any goddess to have a pagan practice. You can also be listening for the communication from plants or trees, and they can be allies, or animals, and they can be allies, from spirit, from ghosts or people who have passed on, from the nature spirits that are all around us in the world, in our natural environment, from rivers, from trees. And this is getting into animism territory, and that's fine. Everything can communicate with you if you give it the space to. It also brings in ancestor spirits, your own ancestors. And this doesn't mean that you have to have a bloodline that you can trace back or a genealogy that you can trace back. That's great. That's useful if you have that. That's fine. But you don't have to have that to practice Irish or Celtic paganism, okay? Because we also believe in transmigration of the soul, which means that you could have had any number of past lives on the island of Ireland, which don't show up on your 23andMe or your ancestry.com DNA test, okay? Nothing to fucking do with it. You can also have connections with community, and you know, as we started, if you don't have it, that's fine, but if you do have it, you can have connections within communities. You can have ancestry through revolutionaries in Irish history, through people on this island who have changed things, who have done big things that you relate to. So that would be like a social ancestry as well. And again, I do have an ancestry class at the Irish Pagan School, which you can dig into all of this about, but this is a very common thing that comes up. So I'm kind of touching on a lot of the aspects of pagan practice here. But really, just to really simplify it, it all comes down to making space every single day. It is that consistency that builds your pagan practice and creates a foundation for everything else that comes after that, okay? So once you have that established in whatever way suits your life, you start from where you are, okay? And you do that consistently, and you do that for a month or two, and you make sure that you are able to stick to that practice, to have that consistency. And that's why we hook it into something that we're doing every day. And believe me, I know what it's like to have that neurodivergent brain that wants you to hop onto the less boring part, that makes sure that, you know, you can't stick to a routine no matter how much you want to, that, you know, or trauma stuff, which self-sabotages you and stops you from doing things that you know are good for you. Me. I'm talking about me right here because that's what I do, okay? But all of that is just a workaround for all of that I have found that works for me, okay? Is to just keep it really small and really simple and have that as your baseline, and to hook it onto something that you are already doing every day. If you're putting on underwear every day, or pajama pants, or, you know, your big boy pants for going out into the world, whatever that is, if you are putting on your socks every day or some kind of footwear, you just find something. I know I use that toilet example all the time, but everybody pisses, okay? Everybody has their first morning piss, okay? And it might not always be in a toilet, okay? Your medical situation is your own fucking business. But everybody has something that they consistently do. The first time you put something into your mouth, right? Food, drink, whatever it is, medication, okay? Whatever it is that you do every single day without even thinking about it, that is a consistent habit. That is where you find your window. Might not seem very spiritual, might not seem like a big deal, but that is where you find your window of just clicking it. So for me personally, I have to take medication every morning. That has become an absolute routine. I sit up, my feet hit the floor, or sometimes they don't, sometimes I do it from bed, and I take my medication every morning and I do my meditation after that. And that is just how that works, okay? It doesn't matter, like I do 10 minutes on a Calm app, and that works for me. But again, it can literally be 3 deep breaths. If you have kids coming at you, or a partner talking to you, or whatever, you can just shut your door, or, you know, pretend you're not awake yet, whatever it is, and just take those 3 deep breaths and leave a little bit of space, okay? Little bit of space to just tune in to what's going on. You do not have to have a quiet mind. You do not have to be able to sit in silence for 30 minutes or 3 hours with like an empty brain. That is not what meditation is, okay? It's more like a river that flows, and as you just focus on your breath, you will get thoughts that come in. You just notice them and then let them go again on down the river. And it's that simple, okay? So do it for 3 breaths, do it for 6 breaths, do it for 9 breaths, whatever it is, right? And just build up from there. As long as you can do it consistently for you know, whatever it is that you've chosen, the smallest common denominator, you know, that you can fit into your day on a consistent basis. Okay, and then you could also then start maybe lighting a candle during that time, or saying a prayer, or, you know, doing a bit of outreach at that point. And once you have that baseline established, that is your pagan practice. Okay, you could start observing where the moon is. You could follow the moon cycle and just make that part of, as you're taking your breaths at whatever time of the day that is, you think about the moon phase and you think about what that means for your energies. You think about, you know, whatever it is. But before any of that happens, you need to be able to have that open space, or after. I mean, whatever suits you. You could do it before or after, right? So you could have a little prompt for yourself, right? Say the moon phase, think about that. And then again, leave that open and see if anything comes to you in that small, quiet space, okay? And learning how to do that is your pagan practice. And don't let anyone tell you that you need to, you know, have the words of this ritual down and you need to do it on a certain day at a certain time wearing a certain fucking pair of knickers, right? It doesn't matter, right? None of that actually matters. It's all nice to have and to build up to, and I'm not dismissing it as effective, but what I find is most people jump to the big stuff and don't do the legwork of the little stuff. So by the time they get to the big stuff, the big complicated stuff, it's like this big blowout that they do inconsistently, you know, whenever they often feel guilty or ashamed of not having done anything in a while, right? And they haven't done the foundation, they haven't done the build up, okay? You could dedicate that time every single day, or you could find another time, right, and hook a little bit of reading. So read a page of one of the texts, you know, read a page of a book that is a recommended resource. You know, 2 lines, 3 lines, it doesn't matter how much, a whole chapter, you know, it doesn't matter. That's going to depend on you and your skills. But again, that's studying. That's part of your pagan practice. That's studying. Just pick something and read a couple of lines, read a page, read, you know, 3 pages, a chapter, you know, whatever it is, right? Whatever you can do consistently, and you start to add that to your practice every day, you know? And if you miss a day, which people often do, and that's okay, that's fine. Just don't miss 2 days, okay? Shit happens. If you miss 1 day, it's a little blip, and that's fine, right? But you get it back on track the next day. And missing 2 days becomes missing 3 days. Missing 3 days becomes missing a week, you know? And then it's like, oh, fuck it, I'll start again on the next new moon or whatever. Don't fucking tell me you don't do that, because everybody does that, right? Stop doing that. That is your pagan practice. Stop making excuses. Stop letting yourself off the hook, okay? Find what you can do, where you are, and start doing it consistently. And that, my friends, Muharja, Muhua, is your pagan practice, okay? And I promise you, if you put in that work, if you put in that effort, you will not get startling, life-changing results immediately, but that's fine. But it will change your life. It will build your strength. It will open those pathways for relationships with the gods, guides, and guardians of pagan Ireland. Okay, I promise that is how that works. Okay, so hopefully that's been useful. Hopefully it's answered the question. Hopefully it's shared some experience and made you feel a little bit less alone or guilty or ashamed, because those are all killers of pagan practice. I can promise you that too, speaking from my own experience. So GRMA for your time and your attention, and for sticking with us at the Irish Pagan School. And again, links to everything are below. And slán go fóill, and I will see you in the next video.